Hey guys, this is Miss Arlequin, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the questions that are associated with the test passage, The Great Pumpkin. This passage was found on the 2015 New York State ELA exam for 7th graders. In a previous video, you can hear the read aloud of this passage. This video is just going to go straight to the questions. Okay, so now that I'm done reading the article, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I know what the central idea is. Many questions are going to tie back to the central idea, so it's always a good idea to just kind of jot that down at the bottom of the passage. You will find it very helpful when answering the rest of the questions. So when I think back to the passage, it was really about this guy Werner growing these colossal pumpkins and then competing in a lot of different competitions for oversized pumpkins. All right, so question 1. Which idea is introduced in lines 1 through 6? All right, so of course I'm going to go back and read lines 1 through 6. I see that it starts off by describing Werner's pumpkin patch. It's winter time. There's some figurative language, descriptive language. He's gazing out his kitchen window, caressing his seeds. The topsoil is frozen, so obviously it's not planting season, it is winter. His orange tractor sits unused in the garage. He's not a big talker. It always comes back to springtime when his friend calls him, to the pumpkin patch and the way off. So even in the winter time, he is thinking about his pumpkins and waiting for the time where he can grow them and go into the competitions again. All right, so he's focused on his hobby throughout the year. Yeah, that's kind of what I just said in different words. He believes that cooperation is the key to success. Why? Because his friend phoned him? That's a stretch. His seeds are sought after by other growers. Who said? I mean, yeah, his friend called him, but who said his friend is a grower and that his friend wants his seeds? Werner's location has contributed to his success. Well, it's wintertime and he can't grow the pumpkins, so where is he being successful in this opening paragraph? No. A is the obvious correct answer. All right, question 2. Read this sentence from lines 16 and 17. Then he covers them with plastic cups to prevent honeybees from meddling. The author uses the word meddling in line 17 to suggest that honeybees. All right, so this is a vocabulary question. I actually have to figure out what meddling means before I can figure out why the author is using it and what he's trying to say about the honeybees. He covers them with plastic cups to prevent honeybees from meddling. All right, if I was a farmer, are bees a good thing for me? Do I want them to meddle? Well, he's trying to prevent them. He doesn't want them to meddle. What would bees do with the stuff that I'm growing? Bees would probably go and eat what I'm growing, which would mean they would disappear. So I don't want the honeybees to eat or to bother or maybe to interfere. So I'm covering them to keep them away from it. I want them to be away. Stay away. Okay. So he's suggesting that honeybees are sensitive to cooler temperatures. That has nothing to do with it. It's so obviously wrong. They will cause problems in the garden. Well, I said words like bother and stay away. That is a problem. They will leave the garden quickly. What does covering and preventing honeybees have to do with leaving? Nothing. He wants them to leave. That's why he's covering it. They're attracted to light sources. There's nothing here that says anything about light. So I'm going to go with B as my answer choice. All right, so as I move on to the next question, I want to point out that what I'm really doing is looking at the text evidence, thinking through what I know from the text, and then using logic to use process of elimination. This is really the most important strategy for any test, is just taking your time to really think it through. And I've also been breaking down the question. That's a very important step. I break down the question and make sure I know what the question's asking of me, and it makes it a lot easier to then tackle the answer choices. Question 3. The photograph in the article is most closely related to... All right, and then the answer choices are all a bunch of different lines, groups of lines. So this is a difficult question only because I have to go back to each of these sections and really read carefully. So this is really all about close reading. So when I look at the picture, I see that it is a pumpkin with a weird shape. I see the tractor and it's carrying it. And the caption says, at a pumpkin contest in Rhode Island, a pumpkin is transported for weighing. And it's being transported by the tractor, by the truck. All right, so let's go through the different answer options. Lines 27 through 29. Is this section about taking the pumpkin to the competition on a truck to be weighed? Warner beamed, "It's a real long and real wide. It's in really good shape." But as he leaned in closer, running his hand along a smooth ridge, his face grew taut. "Oh man, as a matter of fact, it's split." Okay, this can't be the answer because this has nothing to do with taking the pumpkin to a competition. 30 to 33. Tucked into the blossom end of the pumpkin was a tiny crack. Even if the crack wasn't enough to disqualify the fruit from competition, it could widen. This makes me sick. It's why I grow so many. All right, so I see competition, and I know the picture's about going to the competition, but this is really kind of an add-on to the previous lines. It's about the crack that's in the pumpkin and how he actually can't take this particular pumpkin to competition. It's not going to win. It won't even be allowed to compete. So this is really not related to the picture. Answer choice C, lines 34 through 39. Him and his pal are competitive gardeners. Competition. Their crop of choice is the Atlantic giant pumpkin, a freak of nature and intensive breeding. During growing season, the pumpkins can gain 50 pounds, and the cracked pumpkin has swollen too much. All right, so this is all about what they do. But even though it mentions competition, this paragraph doesn't specifically talk about taking it to the competition and using a truck. So unless answer choice D is totally wrong, this is not the best choice, but it could be the answer. I'm going to hope that answer choice D is better. Lines 40 through 43. In general, he has kept about 2/3 of his colossal gourds intact. In 2008, he earned the title of Grower of the Year. All right, that's the competition. After trucking pumpkins. Okay, that's the travel. The truck. To 6 weigh-offs and winning 5. His pumpkins had an average weight of nearly 1,500 pounds. So these lines actually show how big the pumpkins are, which you can see from the picture. And it talks about transporting them to competitions. So I'm going to go with this, lines 40 through 43, as my correct answer. Question 4. How do lines 44 through 48 reflect a central idea of the article? Okay, thank God I talked about central idea. Although this question is not asking for the central idea. It wants a central idea. So really what they want me to do is think about the overall central idea and see what the central idea of this paragraph is and how they relate to each other. All right, so let me review this paragraph. All right, so when I go back to this paragraph, I see that they're talking about giant pumpkins have tripled in size. And the reason, they're saying thanks to strategic breeding and hardcore growers with time on their hands and dirt under their fingernails. So these are why there are colossal pumpkins. And it talks about Warner spending 6 to 8 hours a day tending his garden, and that Thomas Andres, who is an expert, has predicted that pumpkins are going to keep growing and that we're going to get a 1-ton pumpkin eventually. All right, so is it explaining some of the challenges? No, there's no challenge here. I mean, you could argue maybe, but you're reading too much into it if you say, well, 8 hours a day is a challenge. I don't know. I mean, if you're not into it, it's a challenge. But these people are really dedicated. So it's not really hard for them. They love it. They're passionate. By explaining why pumpkin growers have time to breed pumpkins. Well, it talks about them having time on their hands, but it doesn't say why they have that time. I don't know why. Maybe they don't have children. But that's not there in the text evidence. By connecting the efforts of pumpkin growers to the size of giant pumpkins. Well, yeah, the reason why they have giant pumpkins is because they have time on their hands. This looks like the answer. By showing the recognition that successful pumpkin growers get for their efforts. No, I don't see anything about them being wonderful, about the winning of the competition would be the recognition, or somebody congratulating them. So this is not the answer. It is answer choice C. This answer, though, is probably the distractor. Actually, this is a distractor, too, because you might see the time here and get distracted and think that's the answer. And this would be the distractor because they talk about somebody who's an expert. And when you think about experts, you think about them complimenting people, sharing an opinion, because they're an expert in that field. So those are distractors, but if you reason it through the way I did, you would not get distracted. Question 5. Which evidence from the article suggests that Werner's hobby is popular? Giant pumpkins have tripled in size since the 1980s. I don't know, maybe. I mean, if they've tripled in size, it shows that people are working on it, but does that necessarily mean that it's popular and a lot of people are doing it? No. I mean, this could be they've tripled in size and there's only 2 people who are working on it. That doesn't show that a lot. Popular would have to be that a lot of people are doing this. So that can't be the answer. I'm going to take my dot off. Competitions can earn gardeners thousands of dollars. All right, that shows that there's a lot of money. You would think earning money would make something popular, but just because you can win a lot of prize money doesn't mean a lot of people are entering the competition. Experts predict that a one-ton pumpkin will be grown soon. Again, it's the same reasoning as answer choice A. Just because a big pumpkin is coming doesn't mean it's a lot of people who are going to be growing it. It could be 1 or 2 people working on it. There are more than 80 competitions. Okay, that's a lot. If you have 80 competitions, then you must have people coming. You're not going to have 80 competitions if it's the same 2 people entering over and over again. So this means that this is the answer choice. The more popular something is, the more you have of it. All right, question 6. Lines 53 through 66 generate interest in the topic of great pumpkin growing by A, providing detailed descriptions of the way-offs, B, describing challenges that growers must overcome, C, mentioning that people can achieve similar results themselves, or D, suggesting that consumers can benefit from these friendly competitions. All right, so let's review. This is the end of the article, and they're talking about how it's a home science, and that they graph their pumpkins, they share their successes and their failures. By God, if we can get a pumpkin up to a ton, imagine what we can do with somebody's vegetable crop. What we will be doing will be reflected on the dinner table of America. So what they're saying is this can help food in America. This is very important what they're doing. And it's friendly competition, but it has a deeper meaning to it. It can actually change the way we eat and grow food. So is it a detailed description of the way-offs? No. Describes challenges? No. Does not describe challenges. Mention that people can achieve similar results themselves. Well, it is at home. Does that mean that I can do it? I mean, I really don't know anything about this particular area. How can I do this myself? No. I don't think that this is true, but consumers would be me, right? I'm somebody who shops for food. If you're a consumer, you use something or you shop for something. And they're saying the dinner table. Well, who's going to bring the food to the dinner table? It's the consumers who go to the supermarket and buy foods. That can be the benefit. So this is D. This is the answer. All right, our last question is which statement would be most important to include in a summary of an article? All right, so when we're doing a summary question, we are looking at, especially for nonfiction, a summary needs to have a central idea, and it has to have at least 2 details that prove that that central idea is actually the central idea. It has to support that central idea. So which statement? All right, so it could be a central idea statement or it could be a detail that relates to the central idea. So if we go back to what I determined the central idea to be, which I knew was going to be helpful, Werner grows colossal pumpkins and competes in many competitions. All right, so I'm looking for something like that. Growing giant pumpkins requires a combination of time and skill. All right, so it is about growing giant pumpkins. That's definitely true. Do you need to have time and skill? Is that what most of this article is about? This is tempting. This could be it. Let me go back. Just check my central idea again. If you're competing, you do have to have skill, right? All right, so I'm not going to eliminate this. This could be it. All right, giant pumpkins grow best in regions that have changing seasons. All right, well, obviously this is in the article, but is it the changing seasons? Actually, no. If anything, this actually contradicts. kind of what's in the passage. They talk about how it can't be too cold. So, yeah, the seasons have to change, but not too much. So, no. And that's not really what the whole article's about. This doesn't show anything about the competition, which I said was part of Central Idea. Giant pumpkin whales generally take place in the spring. This is way too specific. This is just telling you when competitions take place. It doesn't tell you anything about what the rest of the article is about how hard they have to work. So it is really, now that I think back and I see these other answer choices, I'm realizing more and more how important the skill, all those paragraphs that talk about the time and the effort, the crack in the pumpkin, and how that's, skill is going to train you to not grow the pumpkin too quickly so that it cracks. Growing giant pumpkins requires a background in science. Well, they said it's a home science. And they are doing scientific things, but these are just farmers. They're not scientists. So I'm going to eliminate that. And that's not, again, what the whole article is about. I mean, the competitions are a part of it. The competitions have nothing to do with science. So I'm going to go with A. That really matches what I said my central idea was when I first finished reading the article.